Driver Manager and its methods. Till now we have seen the architecture of Jdbc, driver, and the types of driver. One who knows the Jdbc architecture should also know the importance of Driver Manager and its functions well. Now we will discuss more about the Driver Manager class. The Jdbc Driving Manager is an important class that defines the objects which is used to connect Java applications to a Jdbc driver. It is the backbone of the Jdbc architecture. It is used to manage the different types of Jdbc database drivers running on an application. The main responsibility of the Jdbc Driver Manager is to load all the drivers found in the Jdbc.drivers system property properly. The Driver Manager also helps to select the most appropriate driver from the previously loaded drivers when a new open database is connected. It is not the only way to define the drivers. We can also explicitly load a driver in a program at runtime which is not included in the Jdbc.drivers. It also keeps track of the driver login time limits and does tasks such as printing of log and tracing messages. The most frequently used method of this class is getConnection. From the name itself, we know the function is this method used to establish a connection to a database. The Register Driver method in this class allows a driver to register with the Driver Manager. We can also load the driver class using the class_for_name method. Jdbc drivers are designed to inform the Driver Manager about them automatically when their driver implementation class was loaded. Here is an application that is connected with databases through the Jdbc driver. I think this diagram helps you to understand the functions and importance of the Driver Manager class. In this, the Driver Manager class selects the most appropriate driver for the database and loads it to get the connection. Let us see the structure and functions of a few commonly used methods. Register Driver. This method registers the given driver with the Driver Manager class. Here, driver is the object of driver class. GetConnection is one of the important methods in the class. It has three forms. It establishes the connection to a given database URL. All these getConnection methods return a connection object. The basic functionality of all the getConnection methods is the same, but with the parameters used to obtain the connection were different. In this second form, we had given the username and the password to access those URL. In this third form, we gave the information, which is the object of the properties file with the database URL, to get a connection. GetDriver. This method attempts to locate a driver that understands the given URL string. The Driver Manager attempts to select an appropriate driver from the set of registered Jdbc drivers. GetDrivers. This method will retrieve all the registered drivers from the system and it will return the drivers in the form of enumeration. Deregister Driver. This method will drop the given driver from the list of the drivers registered in the Driver Manager class. Here, the driver is the object of the driver class. More than 200 drivers are available nowadays. If you want to see the list of currently available Jdbc drivers for various databases, refer to this link. Establishing a connection. So far we've seen about the Driver Manager class and the types of Jdbc drivers. Now we will discuss about how we can retrieve the data from the database. Generally, if we want to manipulate the data in a database, first we need to connect to that particular database server. Once we've got the connection, we can communicate with the database server. We can send an SQL query to retrieve data from a table. We can also update, insert, and delete the data in the database by sending a SQL query. The 4 steps to access a database through Jdbc are A JDBC database driver. Create a connection. Create a statement. Execute the statement. Let us see all those steps one by one in detail. Load a JDBC database driver. As we discussed earlier, there is a bundle of JDBC drivers available now. Each and every driver is conformed to any of the 4 types. Each have their own supporting databases. If the driver was already installed on our system, then we can create an instance of it using the static forName method of the class, like this. For example, if we are using MySQL database, one of the best drivers was given by MySQL AB, i.e. MySQL Connector /J. It is a Type 4 JDBC driver and has a complete JDBC feature to support MySQL database. We can download this driver from this link under the general public license. After installing the driver, we can load the driver using this code. If we are using the JDBC ODBC bridge, we don't need to install the driver because it's already included in our Java Development Kit, or JDK. ODBC database, the code used to load the driver is like this. If we want to connect to different database servers, we need to load all JDBC drivers for every database. For example, if we need to connect to an ODBC database as well as a MySQL database, we have to load both of these drivers. Creating a connection. Once we registered the driver with the Driver Manager, we can use it to get a connection to the database. The database connection is represented by the java.sql.connection interface. We can use the getConnection method of the Driver Manager class to obtain a connection. Previously, we have discussed the getConnection methods and its various forms. Now let's recall the signatures of those methods here. Generally, the first and second methods are mostly used. The URL is very important. Here the URL is the database URL, which takes the form like this: JDBC sub-protocol sub-name. JDBC is the protocol name, same for all drivers. Sub-protocol and the sub-name are different for every database server. That should be described in our JDBC driver documentation. If we are using a JDBC ODBC bridge driver, the sub-protocol is ODBC, and the sub-name is the data source name, or DSN, for that database. For example, DSN is wings, and then the URL will be like this. If we want to connect to a MySQL database, the sub-protocol is MySQL. Subname should be given as the name of the machine and the database. For example, if the database name is wings, then the URL will be like this. Here the local host refers to our machine name. 3306 is the port number where MySQL was installed. Once the driver recognizes the URL, it will establish a connection to the particular DBMS. Sample code to get the connection to MySQL database will be like this. The admin is the username and the learning is the password. If the connection doesn't require you to log in, you can pass null values as arguments for the username and password fields. We can also send the username and password with the URL itself like this. And we can get the connection by using this code. Here, the connection object obtained through this process is an open connection. Now we can use this to pass our SQL statements to the database server. We will discuss the remaining 2 steps in the next lesson. Creating and executing the statements. Let's continue from the previous lesson. Here we will discuss about how to send SQL statements using a statement and executing that statement. Creating a statement. Once we've got the connection, we are able to send the queries to a database. Before passing a query, we have to consider a few things for better results. Whether the database can understand the query, and whether the corresponding user has privileges to access the database. Because in many cases, the user has the access to read the data, but the user doesn't have the access to modify or update the table. A statement object is used to send and execute SQL statements. Create a statement using the createStatement method of the connection interface. The syntax of the method looks like this. So the code to create a statement looks like this. Here the con is the object of connection class. Now we've created a statement. Then we can use the methods in the statement class to manipulate the data. The methods that execute the query are also defined in the statement class. Executing the statement. The two main methods for executing the query are executeUpdate and executeQuery. Here is the structure of these methods. Both executeUpdate and executeQuery methods accept a string containing a SQL statement. The executeUpdate method executes an insert, update and delete statement, and also statements to create, drop and alter tables. Methods return the row count, i.e. the number of rows affected, for insert, update and delete statements, or it returns 0 for SQL statements that return nothing. The executeQuery method executes a SQL select statement that returns data. This method will return a result set object, which contains the data produced by the given query. The method never returns a null. If the SQL query results in 0 rows, the statement object will return a result set object containing no rows, not a null. First, we will insert a record. A single row of a table is referred as a record in SQL. We'll insert this in the table and update the same using executeUpdate method. For example, I insert a record in the existing login table and the code will be like this. In this example, I insert a username and password in the table and update the table. We will see about SQL statements in upcoming chapters in detail. The second method, i.e. executeQuery, was used when we want to retrieve some data, so it returns a result set object. We will discuss more about result set in the upcoming lessons. Now let's look at an example that retrieves all username and password from the login table. This query will return the username and password exists in the table. The result was stored in the rs object of result set. Using the next and getString methods, we retrieve the username one by one from the table. Here the next method points to the specific row of the result set, and the getXXX, getString or getInt, etc. method is used to get the value from the table. I hope you've got a clear idea now about the steps for accessing the database using Jdbc. We will discuss the sample program for accessing the database.